When it comes to hip-hop legends, few names carry the same weight as Rick Ross and Big Meech. But behind the luxury cars, the million-dollar chains, and the lavish lifestyles, there's a story that's never been told completely. A story involving money, loyalty, betrayal, and a rumored $100 million deal gone wrong. It all started when Rick Ross began calling himself the biggest boss. But some people in the streets claim that title belonged to only one man, Demetrius Big Meech Flannery, the real-life boss behind the BMF empire. For years, whispers have surrounded Ross' accusations that he used Big Meech's name, image, and story to build his own empire, without ever giving back. Now, new rumors claim Ross didn't just borrow the name, he took millions from deals, projects, and royalties that were originally meant for Big Meech and his people. Some say it's all lies. Others say there's proof hiding in contracts and street conversations that never made it to the media. So what's the truth? Did Rick Ross really take $100 million from Big Meech, or is this just another hip-hop myth blown out of proportion? Stay tuned, because in this video, we're breaking down the entire story from their first connection, to the rise of BMF, to the money trail that might reveal whether Ross was inspired by Meech, or built his empire on his name. When you think of power, wealth, and influence in hip-hop, two names stand above most: Rick Ross and Big Meech, both larger than life, both symbols of what it means to come from the streets and turn hustle into an empire. But behind the shine and success lies a story darker than the diamonds they wear. A story that connects two bosses and a mysterious rumor that $100 million might have quietly switched hands before the world knew the biggest boss as Rick Ross. There was Demetrius Flannery, better known as Big Meech, the founder of the Black Mafia family BMF. In the early 2000s, Meech wasn't just running the streets, he was living a lifestyle straight out of a movie. Exotic cars, mansions, endless cash flow, and an image that blurred the line between gangster and celebrity. His crew dominated Atlanta, Miami, and beyond, even rubbing shoulders with artists like Young Jeezy and T. But here's where it gets interesting, because around the same time, another man was slowly building his legend in Miami. Rick Ross, born William Roberts, had been grinding in the underground rap scene, searching for that one identity that would separate him from everyone else. Then came his breakout hit Hustlin', with that one word repeated again and again: every day I'm hustlin'. Every day I'm hustlin'. The world suddenly knew his name, but the streets noticed something else too. The way Ross carried himself, the way he talked about moving weight, being the boss, and the BMF lifestyle. To many, it felt like Ross was mirroring Big Meech's persona. In interviews, Ross often referred to himself as the boss. He talked about money, power, and the code of the streets, but critics argued it wasn't entirely his story to tell. And when he dropped lines like "I think I'm Big Meech," Larry Hoover on his track BMF, the connection became impossible to ignore. That one lyric lit up the entire hip-hop world. Fans were hyped. Streets were divided. Some said it was a salute, others said it was exploitation. Because by that time, Big Meech was sitting in prison, serving a long sentence for drug trafficking and money laundering. And yet, Rick Ross was on the outside, profiting from a lifestyle and a name that didn't belong to him. Now, here's where the $100 million rumor started brewing. Ross's career skyrocketed with albums like Port of Miami, Teflon Don, and God Forgives. People began calculating how much he was making off that image. Brand deals, music sales, tours, and business ventures. Behind the scenes, whispers began circulating that Ross had made over $100 million building a persona inspired by Big Meech and the BMF name. And here's the twist: some people close to Meech claimed that Ross never asked for permission. Rumor has it, members of the original BMF circle weren't happy. They felt Ross was taking credit for their legacy while Meech was behind bars. Some even claimed that Ross had promised to hold it down for Meech and support his family financially, but those promises were never fulfilled. Whether true or not, these stories kept spreading like wildfire through the streets, podcasts, and social media. Fast forward a few years, and suddenly, That $100 million number wasn't just street talk, it became part of a bigger accusation that Rick Ross used a BMF name and story to build a $100 million empire, while the real Big Meech got nothing in return. Of course, Ross denied ever stealing anything. In interviews, he called his connection to Meech a tribute, saying he respected what BMF represented: hustle, ambition, power. But the internet wasn't convinced. Fans started comparing timelines, lyrics, and interviews, pointing out how Ross's boss image only started after BMF had become a national name. The logic was simple. Big Meech built the real-life empire. Rick Ross built the brand off that image, then, as if to pour more gasoline on the fire, leaked reports surfaced from people claiming to be close to BMF, alleging that Ross had used inside stories and names from Meech's circle for his lyrics and music videos. Whether those claims were true or fabricated, they added more fuel to the $100 million theory. It got even deeper when Meech's own son, Little Meech, began making waves in the entertainment industry, starring in 50 Cent's hit TV show BMF. The show revived public interest in the Black Mafia family story, and with that came renewed criticism of Rick Ross. Viewers started asking, if 50 Cent could give Meech's family their story back, why didn't Rick Ross ever do the same? Meanwhile, Ross was expanding his empire: Wingstop franchises, Belair's champagne deals, luxury cars, and mansions. Every success he posted online made fans question, is this where that $100 million really came from? But to understand the full story, you have to look beyond money. This was never just about dollars, it was about identity and respect. In hip-hop, credibility is everything. And when someone feels their story's been taken, it's more than theft, it's betrayal. The streets started calling it the silent robbery. Not with guns or violence, but with fame and branding. Rick Ross didn't steal Meech's money, he stole his image, his myth, and turned it into gold. But here's the real question that we'll explore: was it theft or tribute? Because some insiders say that Ross and Meech actually did speak, that Ross sent money and support to Meech's people while he was in prison. Others claim that Meech himself respected Ross's hustle, calling it inspiration, not imitation. So, which version is true? In the next part, we'll dig deep into the evidence, leaked letters, insider interviews, and street confessions that reveal what really happened behind the scenes. Was Rick Ross a friend who kept Meech's name alive? Or a businessman who built a $100 million legacy off someone else's story? One thing's for sure, the truth is more twisted than anyone expected. The story didn't stop at admiration, it evolved into a storm of accusations that shook hip-hop from Miami to Atlanta. By the time Rick Ross had fully claimed the biggest boss title, whispers of betrayal had already begun. People in Meech's old circle claimed they watched Ross rise to the top using their slang, their lifestyle, and even their symbolism without ever giving credit. For them, it wasn't about envy, it was about loyalty. See, in the streets, loyalty is currency. When someone holds your name down while you're behind bars, they're expected to represent you the right way. But when that representation starts turning into millions and you're not seeing a single cent, that's when it crosses the line. Behind closed doors, old BMF affiliates started talking. Some said Ross promised to contribute to Meech's legal defense fund. Others claimed he'd pledged a portion of his earnings to Meech's family. Yet when time passed, those promises allegedly disappeared. A 2014 interview on a smaller hip-hop blog featured a man who claimed to be close to the BMF inner circle. That line alone reignited the feud between Ross and 50, and the public started connecting dots that might not have even been there. Still, perception became reality. Fans began questioning Ross's authenticity again, wondering whether his boss image was truly earned or just borrowed. Then, out of nowhere, a leaked letter surfaced online, allegedly written by Big Meech himself. In that letter, Meech supposedly praised Ross for keeping the name alive and said he didn't feel disrespected by the music. But critics pointed out inconsistencies: the handwriting, the phrasing, things that didn't sound like the real Meech. No official confirmation ever came. So what's real? Let's break it down. Financially, Ross's career exploded after 2010. Between his Maybach Music Group label, partnerships with Belair, Luke Blair Ross and Wingstop, plus real estate investments. Analysts estimated his net worth had crossed $100 million by 2022. The same number linked to the rumor, $100 million, now looked eerily symbolic. The streets called it karma money. The idea was that Ross had built a brand based on Meech's image of power and luxury, from the name boss to his videos showing fleets of cars, private jets, and mansion estates, all symbols that BMF made famous years earlier. But while people debated whether Ross owed anything, one thing became clear: his success was unstoppable. The controversy didn't slow him down. If anything, it made him even more talked about. Every time someone accused him of stealing Meech's identity, Ross would drop another platinum single, post another luxury mansion, and remind everyone that the biggest boss answers to no one. Still, behind that confidence, there were moments that made fans wonder. In one old interview, when asked about Big Meech, Ross paused for a second, then said quietly, "Meech inspired a whole generation. The world needed to know who he was. I made sure they did. To some, that was respect. To others, it was a confession. Because if you really make sure the world knows someone's name and you're earning millions while they're locked away, shouldn't that person or their family benefit too?" Then, Little Meech, Big Meech's son, entered the picture. As BMF became one of TV's hottest shows, he was constantly asked about Ross. Interestingly, Lil Meech never publicly disrespected Rick Ross. Instead, he said things like, "Ross showed love. I don't think he ever tried to hurt my dad's name." That one statement changed the energy online. Suddenly, fans started questioning whether the beef had been exaggerated all along. Maybe it wasn't theft, maybe it was a misunderstanding. But not everyone agreed. Some former BMF members still speak in interviews and YouTube documentaries, saying that Ross played it smart, taking what was real in the streets and packaging it for the mainstream. One said, "Ross didn't rob Meech with a gun, he robbed him with a microphone." That quote hit hard, and it became the headline for dozens of videos and blogs. At the same time, legal experts pointed out something crucial. You can't copyright a person's life story unless it's officially licensed. So even if Ross took inspiration, there was no legal case. Only the streets could judge him, and the streets never forget. As years passed, both men's legacies took different paths. Big Meech still behind bars, but now celebrated as a symbol of ambition and loyalty. Rick Ross, a self-made mogul with businesses, platinum records, and millions in the bank. The irony? Both called themselves bosses, but in completely different worlds. By the late 2020s, when new YouTubers and TikTokers began resurfacing the $100 million story, it felt like a myth that refused to die. Some claim Meech will speak on it himself once he's released. Others believe there was a quiet settlement or a mutual understanding years ago. But until one of them addresses it directly, the question remains open. Did Rick Ross really steal $100 million from Big Meech? Or did he immortalize his name in a way no one else could? Sometimes in hip-hop, the line between tribute and theft is razor thin. What looks like respect to one man might feel like betrayal to another. And when both of those men are legends, every dollar, every lyric, every name drop becomes part of history. The $100 million question still echoes across the hip-hop world. Did Rick Ross really steal from Big Meech? Or was it all just the power of inspiration? After years of rumors, interviews, and street talk, the truth is more complicated than anyone expected. To understand what really happened, we have to look at the story through three lenses: the industry, the streets, and the people who lived it. Inside the music business, everything is about branding. When Rick Ross adopted the boss persona, he wasn't just copying Big Meech, he was crafting a marketable image. Labels saw money in it, fans saw authenticity, and Ross played that game perfectly. One anonymous Def Jam executive once said in an interview, Ross didn't steal BM's name, he turned the idea of it into music. That's how the industry works. Real life stories get flipped into art. It's true. Hip-hop has always borrowed from real street legends, from Frank Lucas to Nicky Barnes, and built mythologies around them. What made the Ross and Meech story explosive was how recent and real it felt. Meech wasn't a character from history, he was alive, locked up, watching his legacy being commercialized on TV, radio, and streaming platforms. For every brand Ross launched Wingstop, Maybach Music Group, Belair, and more, the boss name became a global trademark. People started associating power, success, and luxury with Rick Ross. But what they didn't know was that all those traits were first seen in Big Meech. If you ask people from Meech's hometown or those who lived during the BM era, you'll get a very different version of the story. To them, Meech wasn't just a drug kingpin, he was a visionary. He turned the streets into an empire and treated people with loyalty. He made regular guys feel like millionaires and turned the hood into a family. So when Ross came along and started using Meech's name in lyrics, a lot of folks felt like the legacy was being sold to people who didn't earn it. One former BM associate said in an online interview, "Meech made it real, Ross made it rich." That one line summarized the debate perfectly. The streets respected Ross's hustle. They couldn't deny his success, but they never forgot where the image came from. Even when Ross released songs like "I Think I'm Big Meech," "Larry Hoover," the line hit differently in different circles. Fans saw it as a shout-out. But people who actually knew Big Meech felt the sting because the man who built that name couldn't even respond from behind bars. Still, it's important to note, not once did Big Meech publicly disrespect Rick Ross. Not once. In fact, through letters shared by his family and associates, Meech always emphasized positivity, growth, and brotherhood. Some insiders claim that when Ross sent a care package to Meech in prison, including commissary money and messages of respect, Meech reportedly told his people, "Let that man live. If he's shining, let him shine." That's where the story takes a turn from bitterness to possible mutual respect. When the BM TV series dropped under 50 Cent's production, fans thought it would reignite the Ross vs. Meech debate. Instead, it sparked something else: reflection. Insiders began revealing how much Ross had actually done behind the scenes to keep BM's legacy alive in hip-hop. Some claimed he quietly donated to causes connected to Meech's old neighborhoods. Others mentioned that he helped several artists who had BM's ties get exposure through Maybach Music Group, even if none of it was publicized. It showed that maybe the story wasn't pure exploitation, maybe it was inspiration turned into opportunity. But the internet never forgets, and controversy sells. Every few months, a new YouTube video or blog would resurface the "Rick Ross stole $100 million from Big Meech" narrative. Still, if you look at the actual records, royalties, business filings, and label deals, there's no evidence that Rick Ross ever directly took money from anything owned or controlled by BM for Big Meech. So, where did the $100 million figure come from? That number represents the total estimated earnings Ross made through music, endorsements, and businesses linked to his boss persona. In other words, not money stolen, but money inspired by an image that BM originally embodied. To the streets, that felt like robbery. To Ross, it was branding. Two different worlds, two different codes. In later interviews, Ross directly addressed the controversy, saying, "Meech is a real one. I've always respected that man and what he built. But what I do is music. What I create is business. It's two different hustles." He also said he never wanted to profit off another man's pain, but instead wanted to honor those who inspired him. And in a rare public letter that surfaced online from Big Meech himself, Meech appeared to echo that sentiment, writing, "Ross showed love. He kept the BM's name alive in hip-hop when the feds tried to bury it. I got love for that." Those words changed everything. Whether that letter was authentic or not, the tone matched everything Meech had stood for: loyalty, love, and legacy. After that, the $100 million rumor started to lose power, because maybe the real story wasn't about theft, it was about transformation. Rick Ross took a name from the streets and turned it into a global empire. And Big Meech, despite being behind bars, became a cultural symbol that inspired a generation to think bigger, move smarter, and dream beyond the block. Today, the world views both men as icons, each representing a different kind of power. Rick Ross, the businessman who turned hip-hop hustle into corporate success; Big Meech, the street legend who built an empire with vision and loyalty. Their stories intertwined forever. Without Meech, there might never have been a Biggest Boss without Ross. Meech's name might never have reached millions of new fans worldwide. So, did Rick Ross really steal $100 million from Big Meech? Maybe not in dollars, but in influence, in image, in storytelling. Ross did take something real and reshape it into his own legend. Yet in doing so, he also immortalized Big Meech, keeping his name alive long after the headlines faded. And maybe that's the price of legacy in hip-hop. You either get your story told by others, or it disappears. As of today, Big Meech's release is expected soon, and fans are already waiting for that first interview, the one where he'll finally set the record straight. Until then, the mystery remains. Was it a theft, a tribute, or simply two bosses living in different worlds connected by one name and one dream? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is undeniable: Rick Ross and Big Meech changed the definition of boss forever.